Good afternoon. I'm Todd Jacobs, president of the Community Foundation, and today I come to you from the beautiful Frauenthal Theater. Perhaps you don't know, but the Frauenthal is actually part of the Community Foundation. We look forward to seeing you at a show in the near future. I certainly know that Eric Messing, our executive director, and the Frauenthal team does as well. While the past year has been different in many aspects, we are blessed by the quality of life here in Muskegon County. Unfortunately, not every resident gets to experience it. Prior to COVID's beginning, the Community Foundation forged a new strategic plan, and it guides our work today. The plan is driven by three institutional values. The first is hope and opportunity, particularly around youth. The second is collaboration, working in a collaborative way to build community goals and around decision making. And the third is building an inclusive community, valuing everybody's voice. These values will make it possible to achieve our vision of building a vibrant community with great opportunities for all. We began our planning process by seeking the community's input and asked them, how could we make the greatest difference? Several hundred surveys were received by community leaders, members, donors, grantee partners, and the Community Foundation trustees and staff. And each and every one of these groups had identified the same three top priorities. Those priorities were education, community and economic development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So our strategic goals have been formed. Our goals state that we want to advance educational attainment, we want to foster a dynamic local economy, and we want to enhance community trust and promote prosperity for all. Today, we're going to highlight some of our efforts over the past year and share opportunities for us to work together. I would like to now introduce Janelle Mayer, our Vice President of Community Investment.
Thanks, Todd. As he shared, I'm Janelle Mayer. I'm the Vice President of Community Investment, and I'm going to share just a sample of some of the investments that we have made to help promote our strategic goals, specifically related to community and economic development, including strategies around affordable housing and affordable daycare. As many of you know, the city of Muskegon is experiencing an influx of new construction housing, which is great for revitalization in our neighborhoods. Many of these homes are slated to be sold at market rate, and we know that those prices may price out some of our neighbors who won't be able to take advantage of the economic opportunity that comes with home ownership. Through a partnership with Community Encompass, we are working to promote more affordable and inclusive development in our downtown neighborhoods through the Encompass Affordable Community Housing, or EACH program, which will work towards providing home ownership opportunities to families that are at or below 80 to 120% of area median income, which is about $44,000 for a family of four. We know families in this income range may need some supports to help make home ownership affordable. So Community Encompass will connect those individuals with budgeting classes to ensure that home ownership is an affordable and a sustainable option for the families, credit recovery if needed, and various forms of down payment assistance, including a down payment assistance fund seeded by a $30,000 grant from the Community Foundation that matches family savings to ensure the home is truly affordable. The project also received a $350,000 loan from the Community Foundation, which will be repaid when the homes are sold and allow us to recycle those dollars back into other worthy community projects. Our grant and loan investments in this pilot project ensure that current and future residents of our downtown neighborhoods are able to equitably benefit from the revitalization currently happening in our community. And while it's just 3 homes to start, there's plans to scale this project and hope that this can be a catalyst for future affordable home ownership projects throughout the county. We also made some significant investments in affordable daycare, and you might be wondering why daycare. But if you ask a family that has small children, they will share with you that daycare is very expensive, up to $10,000 a year to provide care for an infant. And over half of Muskegon County is considered a daycare desert, meaning we don't have enough slots to meet the demands based on population. Surveys of non-working low to moderate income families find that 70% of those households would cite taking care of family as the primary barrier to not returning to the workforce. So in response, Goodwill Industries of West Michigan and the Muskegon Family YMCA have partnered on a pilot project to help address both the shortage of childcare slots as well as the high cost. They're creating a nonprofit daycare that will be opened in the Muskegon Covenant Academy facility. It'll address the high cost of daycare by accepting DHHS subsidies for low-income families. They also have a creative model that provides scholarship subsidies for those more moderate income families who maybe don't qualify for the state subsidy, but who would otherwise be cost burdened by the full price of care. The center is slated to open June 1st, and we hope it provides a blueprint for additional daycare supports throughout the county. Now I'm going to pass it off to Pete DeBoer from our development team.
Hey, thanks, Janelle, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. My name is Pete DeBoer, and I've been at the Community Foundation since the fall of 2019 as the Donor Relations Director. I'm a newer member of the Foundation team and excited to share with you the new giving group we formed over the last year. As you heard from Todd, one of the goals of the Community Foundation's strategic plan is to enhance community trust and promote prosperity for all. This goal centers around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and it also pushes us to diversify our connections within the community and others. We launched a giving circle last year with the hopes of doing just that. If you're familiar with the Women and Men Who Care groups locally, these are examples of other giving groups. Our giving circle is currently made up of around 40 members of the community who are age 50 and younger and represent much of Muskegon County's diversity in terms of race, ethnicity, and orientation, among others. And each member is committed to an annual gift. With those gifts, half stays within the Community Foundation and is building a permanent endowment to support Jedi work. The other half is granted out each year to support local Jedi work, and the recipient is voted on by the members. The group chose the name of Lead Muskegon, standing for Leading Efforts Against Discrimination. In the first year of Lead, we had over a dozen organizations submit applications for support for their Jedi-focused programming. Coalition for Community Development, or CCD, got the most votes and received our first grant of $7,000 last year. CCD is an organization that supports and organizes residents in the city of Muskegon Heights through a variety of projects, including maintaining and enhancing libraries and beautification projects throughout the city. LEAD is hoping to be able to do a group visit this summer to see firsthand the projects that CCD is doing. We continue our momentum into 2021 as LEAD has met with the local branch of the NAACP and viewed their 100-year documentary. Members are sharing relevant community information and resources with each other, and we're planning further educational and growth opportunities. The strategic goal of enhancing community trust has taken on an extra importance for many of us as conversations around race have increased following George Floyd's death last year, and more recently with acts of violence against the Asian American community. Conversation about inclusion and equity for LGBTQ residents is also something we're leaning into. The Giving Circle is providing a space for these discussions among our diverse membership where these issues are intensely personal and critical to moving Muskegon forward. At the same time, we're looking to grow the impact of LEAD. Anyone can give to support LEAD in any amount. We are conscious about maintaining the rich diversity within the voting membership of the Giving Circle itself. So if you're interested in joining, please reach out to me or Heidi Saitama, who will talk in a bit for a conversation about that. Now I'm proud to turn it over to my colleague, Jocelyn Hines.
Thanks, Pete. I am Jocelyn Hines, Program Officer on the Community Investment Team, and I have been with the Foundation since 2017. I am glad to share about our Community Empowerment Small Grant Program. The Community Empowerment Small Grant Program was started in March of 2020. This program was started to support our smaller grassroots organizations in Muskegon County. We realized that some of our low capacity organizations were not able to navigate our traditional grant processes or necessarily fit all the qualifications. To remove barriers and build better relationships with our smaller neighborhood-based organizations, we established this program. Through this program, organizations can request up to $3,000 and we review applications monthly. Since the inauguration of this program, we have funded 27 organizations, totaling $42,178 with a grant average of $1,500. Some projects and programs include absentee ballot boxes for the cities of Muskegon and Muskegon Heights, reducing costs for drug testing, and beautification to neighborhood associations. We also held a small social distance celebration at the farmers market last year to honor those grantees and hear about the work they were doing in our community. We used this opportunity as a final grant report as opposed to a traditional written one. You can see from the infographic all the areas we were able to fund. The priorities of this program was to fund programs, projects, and events focused on our strategic plan focus areas. As you can see from the infographic, we were able to support grantees doing work around our focus areas, which Todd has mentioned earlier in this webinar, as well as many other areas. We are proud of this program and hoping that it continues to grow and expand. If you are interested in learning more about this program, please visit our website or contact me directly. Now, I would like to pass it over to Janelle.
Thank you, Jocelyn. This next section would normally be shared by our colleague, Amy Moore, our Vice President of Grantee Capacity and Evaluation, but Amy was not able to join us today. However, I'm glad to be able to provide some updates on the work that we're doing around education and grantee capacity. When the pandemic hit, we know there was a huge demand on our internet infrastructure locally, and a lot of talk about inequitable access to it in our rural communities. But our local superintendents shared that this was a concern in our urban areas as well. In response, we partnered with our public libraries to be able to provide Wi-Fi hotspots so that students and families could check those out free of charge and continue with their education at home. Families have adapted locally to two new methods of learning, whether they were in person, remote, or hybrid during this time. And towards the end of 2020, some national data began to come out that shared that there was some real concerns with chronic absenteeism and student disengagement in their learning. We surveyed our local educators to get the climate here in Muskegon County and had 540 responses from our local educators, sharing that 80% of them thought that student attendance and engagement was a concern with the students that they were serving. So in response, we offered a mini grant program where educators could apply for up to $750 to help provide creative tools, incentives, and strategies that would increase student engagement and attendance. We were able to make awards to 75 local teachers, totaling over $20,000. And reading through those applications, it was clear that we have exceptional and dedicated local teachers here in Muskegon County. So please take a minute and thank a teacher today. We're also working on a collaboration with the Muskegon Area Intermediate School District to launch a county-wide network of literacy coaches. These coaches will support educators at all public and charter elementary schools countywide to help promote growth in early literacy. There's been a lot of conversation about the importance of reading at grade level by third grade as an indicator for students' future success. And so we're hopeful to launch this partnership soon to set our younger learners up for success. In addition, an important part of the Community Foundation's work is ensuring that we have a strong nonprofit community. And towards that end, we've invested in a partnership with Catch a Fire, which is an online platform that connects our nonprofits to volunteer content level experts that can provide technical assistance in areas such as developing marketing plans or doing strategic planning or website development. The program was just launched in the last month, but already we have some great success stories from our nonprofit partners. Finally, we're working with Muskegon Community College to create curriculum that would support nonprofit leaders of color through professional development and leadership opportunities. We really want to promote equity of opportunity within the Muskegon nonprofit community, and we're excited to work with Muskegon Community College towards that end. Now you're going to hear from my colleague, Heidi Seitzema.
Thanks, Janelle, and hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Seitzema, and I'm the Vice President for Development and Donor Services here at the Foundation. I've been here for about 15 years now, and I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing. While I wish tremendously that we could gather and talk in person about these things, I'm really grateful that we've been nudged to communicate like this in different ways and hopefully connect with an even broader section of the community. If you love Muskegon County and you're also excited about this work, there is good news. You have the opportunity to help support it. There is often the perception that you have to be wealthy in order to be part of the Community Foundation, but that's just not true. We are the community's foundation, and there is room for all of us to chip in and work together. We often talk about our work using 3 words: give, grow, and grant. People like you and me give to the foundation to support this community that we love, and we thank you for that. What makes us different from other nonprofits is that we typically don't spend those gifts. Instead, we invest them to grow them, and we use the earnings from those investments to make grants back into the community to support the projects that you heard about earlier and more. So the work that Janelle and Jocelyn talked about is actually possible because of the gifts, small and large, that people have given us over the last 60 years. Some of those gifts came from wealthy people who gave a lot and created funds in their own names, but many also came from regular folks who steadily added their gifts to the Greater Muskegon County Fund over the years. Together, they built a permanent resource that we will always have to do important work here in this place that we call home. We're asking you today to consider chipping into this strategic work that we're doing. You can give your $5, $50, $500 to the Greater Muskegon County Fund and add to the permanent resources that will make our community even stronger. Or if you're at a point where you have more that you can give, you can actually create a fund in your own name that supports this strategic work at the $5,000 level. This is a new lower entry point for creating an unrestricted fund, or one focused on one of those 3 strategic areas of education, community and economic development, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can also build up to this type of fund over up to 10 years if you want. So a $500 annual gift that will support this work can eventually turn into a permanent legacy for you and your family. The way you give to this work or to any of your favorite causes can be through familiar means like writing a check or giving online. But we've also seen more donors choosing to give in tax smart ways, like with appreciated stock or with the required minimum distributions from their IRAs once they hit age 70 and a half. If you're curious about any of these giving options that I mentioned and would like more information, you can reach out to me or to Pete, who spoke earlier. There's never any pressure, and we would love to have a conversation with you about your Muskegon County legacy. Thanks so much for joining us today, and now we'll turn it over to Matt from Vanguard for a brief update on our investment performance.
Great, thanks, Heidi. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So yeah, my name is Matt Rule. I'm a senior investment consultant at Vanguard in our institutional advisory group. We've served as the investment advisor to the Community Foundation going back to 2014, where we advise on the foundation assets and have daily oversight of the investment portfolio. What we're looking at here is a high-level summary of the portfolio as of March 31st, 2021, which includes current assets, performance versus the benchmark, and asset allocation relative to long-term targets. In the top section of the page with performance, the second bolded line is results net of all fees, so fund expenses and advisory fees. And as a reminder, the portfolio is comprised of low-cost broad market index funds. And we've had a very strong year despite the pandemic, with the portfolio up over 40% over the trailing 12-month period. But we also have to remember that the starting point for the one-year period was close to the bottom of the sell-off we witnessed over a year ago, when stocks fell over 30% from late February to near the end of March. And we see that over all time periods, we've been in line with the costless benchmark. And going back to April 2014, so almost a full 7 years, the portfolio has returned almost 8.5% annualized since inception. So a very strong return. Now at the bottom of the page, we have the portfolio's current allocation across asset classes. And that's compared to the target asset allocation, which is on the right-hand side of the chart. It's a globally diversified portfolio with US and non-US stocks making up the largest allocation. That's balanced by high quality investment grade US bonds, and then rounding things out, real estate through our REIT index, and then the foundation's private loan. Stocks are now slightly above target, something we continue to monitor, but they remain within the allowable range from target. One of the ways we keep the portfolio closer to target is through cash flow into and out of the portfolio. So for example, over the past several months, all withdrawals have been funded through the sale of stocks since they've been overweight. Another way, which is more infrequent, is rebalancing when the portfolio moves too far away from target. So last March, when stocks declined, for example, the portfolio at the time had a large underweight. And what we did is we reallocated from bonds, which were up, and purchased stocks to move the portfolio closer to target. And that's one way that we look to add value, and that led to the portfolio finishing ahead of the benchmark over the past year, again, despite being all indexed. So that's what I wanted to highlight. I'll now pass things off to Colleen.
Thanks so much for that update, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Zart, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at the Community Foundation. This afternoon, you heard from Todd about our strategic goals, advancing educational attainment, fostering a dynamic local economy, and enhancing community trust and promoting prosperity for all. Janelle, Pete, and Jocelyn talked about the work we're engaged in surrounding those goals, and Heidi talked about how you can make a long-term impact in the community. And now we want to hear from you. We have a few minutes set aside for a quick Q&A, so if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Looks like, and I'm just going to give these questions to the rest of the panelists, and whoever would like to answer can just jump on in. We have a question from Melissa Fry. She says, are you still supporting the economic development work of GROW or Northern Initiatives, making capital/resources available to community entrepreneurs? If yes, can you talk about that with a few examples?
Sure, I can talk to that. Thanks for asking, Melissa. So when the shutdown happened here and related to COVID, it certainly impacted our local business community. And while the Paycheck Protection loans and grants made available from state and federal resources were available to businesses, we knew not all of our businesses had the ability to access those resources, or nor could they cover the needs that a business may have in order to keep operating. So we created a partnership with GROW, which is Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women, to help support small businesses with a target of businesses run by families that were perhaps low to moderate income, run by people of color, or run by women, and to allow them to be able to apply for loans to provide operating capital for their businesses to sustain themselves during COVID. That program was launched with a $350,000 loan from the Community Foundation, and has been available to businesses for some time now. But there are also resources. The program has just been relaunched again to help businesses that are looking to pivot their current model based on new operating requirements now that COVID is in place. So for instance, restaurants looking to provide outdoor dining or other resources, these loans could be available to help grow the businesses in those ways, and also help businesses that are looking to get started in response to the current business climate that we are in.
Thank you so much, Janelle. We have a question from Orville Crane. It says, how can the statement on race signed by Todd be used? Orville, if you could clarify in the comments in the chat which statement you're referring to, we would be happy to talk about that. While you're clarifying, we have a question from Daniel. Can you share more about how you define community trust? Who's going to take that one on?
Todd, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Mute got me. I think as it relates to community trust, we really want to make sure that we're reinforcing the desire to create spaces where all voices are valued and heard. And in doing so, we recognize that it means being present where perhaps we have not been present previously. And that is to encourage other folks to make themselves uncomfortable, but to be available and to be listening and to truly embrace the richness that we all bring to the table.
Thank you, Todd. Roger asks, what is the current foundation philosophy concerning program-related investments?
I can speak to that, and Janelle, if you'd like to add on, feel free. The program-related investments are really sub-market loans, sub-market rate loans around strategies, around our strategic goals. we've had some donors that have generously donated some funds that we're able to utilize for these types of investments. Most recently, the program-related investments were those that Janelle had referred to just earlier around housing, affordable housing, and neighborhood revitalization. We're looking at opportunities where we can have catalytic impact, perhaps shorter term, 2, 3, up to 5 years for them to be repaid, but really want to make sure that those align with our strategic goals, whether that's business supports, workforce supports such as housing, or even education. We would certainly look at those areas as well.
Janelle, anything to add there?
No, I think that covers it.
Awesome. Scott asked if the foundation is presently partnering with any environmental sustainability projects.
Sure, I can take that one. So the foundation has an environmental endowment fund that has various local leaders on that committee that are making recommendations to grant that support efforts related to environmental education, land use planning, recycling, and land preservation. That environmental endowment fund, it's a relatively small fund, so often the dollars are used to leverage state and national resources to help make a greater impact here in the community. And if anybody's interested in giving to that, on our website, the Environmental Endowment Fund would be one you could look up. We also have the James Hanna and Mary Murphy Land Fund. Forgive me, I might be not getting the name of that one quite right. That can provide grants for land preservation projects and keeping land in its natural habitat. And that fund can make larger grants towards, land acquisition, and has, traditionally supported efforts related to, preservation of land in its natural state. And so more details on the grants made from our environmental committee can be found on our website, but it is quite an active group, and we'd love to see those funds grow.
Thanks, Janelle. Doug, I believe you asked a very similar question in the chat, but if you have anything else specific that you'd like us to address, go ahead and let us know. Following back up on Orville's comment, he clarified it was the statement that we made recently on social media. He asks, has the county commission seen or heard our statement? Todd, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I would certainly encourage folks. Our statement was actually released on social media, primarily our Facebook page, and I would encourage individuals to share that if they embrace our values. That statement specifically spoke about recent statements of racism and hate that has been espoused. A year ago, we had made a similar kind of statement. I think it's important that we not, as individuals and as an institution, that we're not afraid to let folks know when there are things that are counter to our values as a community. Muskegon has been successful and prosperous because of the contributions of many individuals. The land was first owned by Native Americans. It certainly was then populated by European Americans. As we've come this way, we've certainly, and our county has grown because of the contributions of individuals from a variety of backgrounds, spiritual beliefs. And I think it's important to value everybody. And when individuals are talking about hatred, it's important to speak up and say that we do not accept that.
Thank you, Todd. Jim in the chat asks, and it's a little bit of a long one, but I'm going to read the whole thing because I think it's a pretty important and powerful thing to hear. Over the next 5 years, nearly 200 high school seniors with autism spectrum disorders will graduate and be left with little to no support systems that they received in their primary school. As a result, the 2 years after graduation, over 50% are unemployed and unenrolled in education programs. Those 2 years are critical to effective transition for these individuals. Does this type of transition support fit in with the foundation granting strategy?
Hi, Jim. We would love to have a conversation further with you about this, but I can see a couple of areas of alignment where grant support may be a fit here.
Awesome. I think we are caught up on questions in the chat. Is there anyone else that would like to throw a question our way before we wrap it up for this afternoon? All right, if any more do file in here, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Todd to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you very much, Colleen. And before we say goodbye today, I want you to know that we fully understand that it takes the entire community to reach the aspirational goals that we discussed earlier. It takes you, donors, our grantee partners. Similarly, the Community Foundation is working with local and state leaders to advocate for policy change and leveraging state and national resources, such as the work this past year to secure state funding to support daycare providers. It's so important to our workers and to families, or the extensive census work that was facilitated by the Community Foundation, making sure that our residents are getting counted. We're getting counted. These efforts actually resulted in an additional $2.5 million for Muskegon County each year. And so that'll actually be multiplied because there's the census taken every 10 years. So it'll leverage an additional $25 million for Muskegon County over the next decade. If you have any additional questions or would like to talk more, please reach out to us. We are your community foundation. I believe our phone numbers as well as emails have been included in today's chat. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for your time today. Stay safe.